In order to decrease at the beginning of the row, we first need to switch places between the purl stitch of the first pair and the knit stitch of the second pair. So we want 2 knit stitches together and 2 purl stitches together. So we're going to just slip purlwise the first stitch, and we get to where the 2 stitches that we need to switch. And now you can do one of 2 ways. You can either use something to hold the purl stitch, like a marker or cable needle or something, and take the purl stitch, hold it in back because it belongs to the back layer, and then take the knit stitch with your right needle and place the purl stitch back on your left hand needle. So now we have 2 purl stitches together. Another way to do that is to hold the knit stitch, the second stitch, with your right hand needle. Hold the base of both stitches, especially the purl stitch, with your right hand, because we want to. Now the needle holds only the second stitch. We're going to take the left needle out and quickly insert it just to the first stitch. So we took it out of the second stitch and placed it into the first stitch, and we can place them. The purl stitch is second next to the purl stitch, and we can place the knit stitch back to our left hand needle. So we switched places between the purl stitch of the first pair and the knit stitch of the second pair. So now we have 2 knit stitches and 2 purl stitches. We end the first step with a first knit stitch on our right hand needle, and we didn't work it, we only slipped it. And now we have the second knit stitch of the second pair. Now we want to take the left needle and insert it from back to front into the stitch that is below the first stitch. This is the stitch that's on our needle, and this is the stitch below that it comes out of, and this is the one that we want to lift onto the left hand needle. So we want to go in from back to front and pick it up, lift it. We're going to take the right hand needle, insert it into both stitches, the picked up stitch and the knit stitch that was on our needle, and with the light color, the color of the stitch that we slipped, we're going to knit them together to the back loop, and you can see that what we get is 1 stitch, that 2 stitches, this is our twin stitches that are coming out of the same stitch, and it's important because the light stitch is covering the dark stitch. Okay, we want to keep the edge light, and we want the light to be over the dark. So this is how we get it done. Now we can take both yarns between the needles into the front, and we have 2 purl stitches, and we're going to purl them together with the other color, the opposite color. So if the first stitch was light, we're going to use the dark stitch, and remember that the first pair we need to twist the yarn. So we're going to take all over new, the light over the dark, pick up the dark underneath, and purl the 2 stitches together. So we end up with a twin stitch on the knit stitch and 1 purl stitch, regular purl. Continue to work. And we're going to work these 2 stitches together at the end of the wrong side row. We are on the wrong side and we are back and reach the last pair, which holds the twin stitch on the purl stitch. We're going to work the knit stitch as we do all the time, and then we're going to bring the yarn to the front, and we want to slip, slip and purl the last 2 stitches, the twin stitch. So we're going to slip as if to knit the first stitch of the twin and slip the second stitch of the twin. We're taking them back to the left hand needle. We're going to bring the right needle from back to front into both stitches and purl them with a light color. And we've completed the decrease of the beginning of the row. You can see that it's invisible on the wrong side, and it's also invisible on the right side. And if you do have a little bit of the dark color here, all you need to do is just pull a little bit here, and you can find the stitch that you can find the stitch that is underneath the light stitch when we first decreased. Just find both of its legs and pull it a little bit so the head of the stitch comes in between the layers and go behind the light color. And don't worry, after a few rows it will all work out perfectly. After working the decrease for the first time, every time you come to make the next decrease, we're going to have 2 loops, 2 stitches underneath the first stitch. And remember that we need to lift one of them. So let's see how we do that. We're going to slip the first stitch and rearrange the purl stitch and the next knit stitch. And now we need to lift one of these stitches and knit them together to the back loop with the next knit stitch. We want to lift the most right stitch because we want it to cover the other stitch when we work it. So I'm going to come from back to front into, or from left to right into the far right, the first loop that I see under the stitch that's on my needle. And I'm going to work it together with the knit stitch to the back loop with the light color. And we can see that when we do this, then we only have one loop, because everything, the next loop is actually covered underneath. We're going to take both yarns to the front and just purl both purls together and we want to twist the yarns and purl the stitches with the dark color. And when we come back on the wrong side, complete the twin stitch as we did before.